What's up, everybody? This is Jeff Staple of the Business of Hype. As you guys know, we often open up our mailbox and answer questions from reader mail, questions from all over the place. And what I try to do is actually group these questions together so that they share a common theme. And one of the themes that I kept sort of seeing popping up was the question of financial advisement, how to manage their money properly, how to handle taxes, all these different questions. And so what I decided to do was bring in a special guest for this segment who can help answer these questions for us. In the studio today, we have the honor of Mr. Liang.lee. Hello, Lang. How you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for having me here.
Yeah, of course. So Lang, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
I would say I'm a financial advisor, as you said, somebody who coaches people on their financial well-being and financial balance, helping with various areas of their financial life.
Great. It's great for you to be on the show because, I think this show deals with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? People who start their own businesses are starting to make money, starting to spend money, and just having to deal with a lot of different financial issues, which is why the show was born, why the Business of Hype was born. Interestingly enough, it's not just what you would think of financial guys, corporate types that need financial advisement, right? It's not just them. It's actually more so, if anything, creatives, that need it, because creatives tend to be so good at creating and making art that sometimes, and I'm speaking on my own behalf too, sometimes we kind of suck at the financial organization side, right? So we need it a lot, but obviously, Lang works with a lot of the stereotypical financial corporate executive types that you would think of that need financial advisement. But some of my friends who are some of the most respected artists that I know, a lot of the people that I've spoken to in the past in the financial sector are very difficult to understand, quite honestly. We speak a different language. So what is it about you that you like to tend to work with creatives?
I think you guys are a lot of fun to work with. And it's a pleasure because most of the creative people who are my clients have become my friends. And I think the difference I feel that I've actually heard from them working with me, the difference and the advantages are that it's been a very personal journey, and they tell me things that they don't tell anybody else, and that's just the nature of the work that I do, right?
Yeah.
And it's I think part of the difference is that it's a very comprehensive and holistic planning. I don't just sit there and say, "Give me all your money and let me manage it," right? It's planning in the sense that we're looking at all areas of your life. We're talking about assets, your liabilities, your cash flow, protecting you. So I think it's all those things that I think my clients appreciate.
Yeah, it's oftentimes even like a therapy session, because money is obviously very important in life in general, and it ends up, even though it's a financial thing, it ends up affecting your husband, your wife, your kids, your college, your home, your parents, your grandparents, right? These are all but then on the other side, it affects your choice in wine, where you go to vacation, how many shoes you decide to buy this year. All of these things are tied into the financial situation. So you have to know of your clients that okay, buying X number of sneakers a month is very important to this person, noted. Whereas this other person, he's got 5 kids that he needs to put into college. That's a whole different story. So it's great that you're able to sort of juggle all these different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about balance, right? And looking at all the different parts, and they all need to fit together somehow, right? And it's to me, I've always kind of said it's as much a science as an art, right? That to your point is you have to customize it to that person's and tailor it to that person's life and lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not the guy that's going to say, well, you can't do X, Y, and Z, and you're spending too much on this. To me, if you're saving enough and if you're saving and investing properly, then the excess, well, you can enjoy your life.
Yeah. So let's go to the mailbag and let's answer some of these questions.
Great, be happy to.
So Because of the nature of these questions, I'm obviously going to keep these anonymous. I think it's safer that way. So, okay, let's go to the first question.
Okay.
Lang, where do you start when you help someone achieve financial independence?
Great question. I think to achieve financial independence and make great decisions, I think it's very important to start with financial organization. And to me, since all the areas of your financial life are interconnected, like we just spoke about, it's very difficult to make smart financial decisions unless you look at everything holistically and comprehensively.
Yeah. Before we get too deep into it, for those like who are just starting out, what is financial independence? What does that mean to you?
To me, that's it's a term that's used. It's a great question. To me, it's a term that's used so often that we don't sometimes stop to think about what it means. But if you ask me what it means to me, I think it's that you feel that you don't have to rely on anybody else, maybe, and that you have a sense of security. You have a sense of that you can be independent.
Yeah,
and
you feel free. Like
you feel free,
yeah.
and that and sometimes work is optional. It's
if you're really independent, then work could be optional.
Right.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about financial independence is it's not like a number. It's not like if you hit this number, you are financially independent, because it depends on your lifestyle and what's going on in your life, right? Someone who has 10 kids versus no kids has different financial independence levels. So it's more of like a philosophical thing versus a mathematical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it could be both. Like the thing going back to science and art, I think it's we use a lot of math around this, but to your point, it's different people are going to feel independent and secure differently and measure it differently than other people, right? Like if you have dinner bills that needs to be X amount, you're going to have a different sense of independence, financial independence, than somebody else
who cooks every night for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm trying to get there. All right. So going back to this now, what are the main categories that you try to organize into?
Yeah, I think there are four main domains or categories, and those are assets, liabilities, cash flow, and protection. And we have a platform called the Living Balance Sheet that we use for doing this, and organizing and looking at these categories.
And the client, not only you, the advisor, but the client can also tap into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when you asked earlier about what are the benefits in working with me, looking at everything holistically and comprehensively, using this living balance sheet site, where not only me as the advisor, but the client and the person that I'm helping achieve financial independence, they're going to be able to log into this site and see all the work that we've been doing together, and really be in the driver's seat, and then be able to modify and fine tune these things.
Right. Okay, so for the beginner out there, you just mentioned four main categories. I think you said assets, liabilities, cash flow, and protection, right? I want to know, just just to level set, what the definition of all those things are. So let's start with an asset. What do you mean by when you say assets?
Assets are what you own. Do you want me to give some examples of those?
Yeah.
So, for example, assets are, say, retirement accounts, savings accounts, real estate, artwork, and sneakers designed by a famous designer, perhaps.
Really? Sneakers are an asset?
Oh, anything that you own is an asset.
Right.
And
watches, everything.
Yeah, anything of monetary value. Cool. That's an asset.
So, if you correct me if I'm wrong, if you were to add up everything, the home that you live in, your checking account, your savings account, your retirement account, your sneakers value, your watches value, right? And add up everything in your life, that is your total asset?
That's your total asset amount.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, that's all good and gravy to have all these assets, but you have to spend, and there's money coming in, but there's also money going out the door. So I assume that's what liabilities are, right? So you define it for us. What is a liability?
So liabilities are, to me, what the stuff, not the stuff you own, which were assets. It's the stuff that you owe. So, for example, a liability would be a mortgage. Say you have a house that's worth $1 million, and you owe the bank $600,000 of mortgage. That $600,000 is a line item on the liability section.
Right.
And credit card debt, for example, if you owe Chase $10,000, that $10,000 shows up as a liability on that part of the living balance sheet. Student loans also, for example.
Of course. So it's a great analogy here, where it's like, we were talking about owning a home as an asset, owning artwork and sneakers as an asset. But if you have a mortgage, then that's the liability side. If you have a credit card bill outstanding because you bought all these sneakers, that's a liability as well. Okay, so we've got asset, we've got liability. The next one was cash flow?
Yes, cash flow. And let me just clarify. A lot of people talk about net worth, what you're worth, your net worth, right?
Yep.
And that's simply assets minus liabilities. So total assets minus total liabilities
Equals your net worth.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So, using a clean example, if your total assets is $1 million, but you owe $600,000 in mortgage and all these other liabilities, your net worth is $400,000.
Great. Easy peasy.
Yep. The cash flow.
See, this isn't so hard, kids.
Not yet. Not yet.
All right. Okay. So cash flow. Let's go.
Cash flow represents the ongoing monthly or yearly dollars flowing in and out. So you want me to give you some examples of that?
Yeah.
So for example, your income, you generate income every month or every year, right? Well, both monthly and add 12 months add up to your yearly income, and taxes that you pay. So entrepreneurs, you're typically paying quarterly taxes. And living expenses,
right.
Dinner bills, paying for nice sneakers,
rent,
rent, annual savings,
pet grooming.
Yeah. Pets, we don't want to forget about that. That's
But that's an expense, yeah.
Yes, and annual savings. So it's very important to save a certain amount, and that's a cash flow, right? So you make a certain amount.
You spend a certain amount, yeah.
You spend a certain amount, and you save a certain amount. That's all the flows, right?
Okay.
Those are all the flows. That's why we call it cash flow.
Okay, cool.
Or the flow of cash.
Okay, and again, going back up to the sort of the top, what you do first is you assess and organize and analyze these things. So you've analyzed the assets, what you've got owned. You analyze the liabilities, what you owe. And then the cash flow. How much are you making every month, and how much are you spending every month, right? Okay.
And how those three categories are interconnected, right? Or depend on each other. You can imagine that annual savings is going into the assets every year. The flow is going into the asset section. So the more you can save, the more assets that you have, which can get invested.
Okay.
Right? Taxes, when you pay taxes for liabilities, that's going not to you, but that's going to the government, for example. Cash flow for paying mortgage or rent, that's going to a liability.
Right, okay. And then finally, the last definition or category is protection that we want to define. Protection seems like it makes common sense, but what do you mean when you say protection? You mean like buying a gun and putting it in your house?
No. Financial protection to me is, it represents what keeps us safe from financial threats. So, for example, various forms of insurance policies, your car insurance, your health insurance, your disability insurance, your life insurance, and the wills and trusts, for estate planning.
Right.
So those are examples.
If someone dies or someone gets hurt and they can't work anymore, these are things that you're trying to protect against.
Correct.
Yourself. Makes sense.
Yes, yourself and your family.
I know when I slam my finger in the car door and it's hard for me to mouse, the designs slow down tremendously.
Right. So that's an extreme example that could be a disability, right?
Yeah. That actually is a great segue into this next question that we have out of the mailbag. Why is protection so important to financial independence?
Well, protection is crucial, I think, because it helps to eliminate the threats which could take away everything you worked for. so far, that you've worked so far to build and are about to build, right? So, for example, the threats to us and our families are lawsuits. Somebody sues us, getting sick or hurt, or passing away. If we pass away, then our family's not going to have the future income that we could have generated, that we would have generated. So these threats can potentially take away our investments, our savings, our business values, and it could really put a stop to our ability to generate income. So, so we can protect ourselves from these threats by having proper umbrella coverages for liability, lawsuits, the wills and trusts to protect our family.
I've heard of protection against disabilities and death, like wills and estate planning and stuff. But explain protecting yourself against a lawsuit. That's interesting.
Yeah. So let's say somebody sues you because of something that they claim that you did wrong. The most common personal lawsuit, I think, occurs probably with car accidents.
Yep.
So if you're driving either here in New York or somewhere else, and there's a car accident, somebody sues you, your car insurance will cover you up to a certain amount for liability because that other person who's suing you got hurt, or worse. And the liability, the umbrella policy, it's supposed to take care of that lawsuit. So monetarily compensating somebody, right, for from the results of a lawsuit.
Right. So it's above and beyond your basic auto protection.
Correct.
It's like added insurance on top of that to protect yourself.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm not supposed to really go into any specific products here, but in general, that's what it does. And the similar would be for commercial or business liability, right? Umbrella policy for that. If you're in business and somebody sues you because of they claim that your business caused them some harm financially. So you have personal liability protection and business liability protection.
Gotcha. Okay. So if people want to reach out to you, I have your information here. It's okay for me to give out your number and email?
Sure.
Okay. So the expert's name that we're speaking... Oh, I can't call you an expert, can I? I could call you an expert. I think you're an expert. There's a lot of legalities in terms of what words you could use. But if you want to reach out to Liang.lee, and if you've got a question for him, and if you want to talk to him about your financial situation and see if he can help you out, you could reach him. His phone number is 808-695-2119. His email is Liang, Liang .lee, Lee, at Westpac Wealth, and I'll spell that for you, WESTPACWEALTH.com. That is westpacwealth.com. He's eager to hear from you. I really appreciate your time for coming into the studio and answering some questions from the mailbag that we have. Will you come back and answer more questions one day?
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do it. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again for having me here, Jeff.
Yep. All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Thank
Bye. What's up, everybody? This is Jeff Staple of The Business of Hype. And as you guys know, oftentimes we will reach into the mailroom and pull out a letter from a listener with a question for us, and we'll do our best to ask them. And what I try to do is group those questions into specific genres so that I can best sort of like field them. One of the groups of questions that we get really often is about financial advisement, savings, how to prepare for their future. And these are questions that are quite honestly beyond my level of expertise. So what I've done today is brought in a very special guest into our studio to help out with some of these questions that you guys have. So Liang, why don't you introduce yourself to us, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. I'm a financial advisor at Westpac Wealth Partners. I help people with their wealth management, helping them to protect and grow what they have financially, helping them achieve financial balance.
Excellent. And I think the general stereotype when you talk about financial advising and budgets and stuff like that is like a very tight uptight guy in a suit and he works on Wall Street, but it's not just the corporate types that need financial advisement. If anything, and you have those clients obviously that you work with, but if anything, it's the creatives and the sort of self-starter entrepreneurs that bootstrap their business. Those are the guys and girls that actually need the financial advisement. You seem to have a lot of creative clients in your arsenal, and what I find pretty cool about that is that oftentimes the biggest gripe that creatives have is, I don't want to deal with the math. I don't want to deal with the banking and stuff. It'll come naturally. I'll figure it out, which is like the worst thing you could possibly do. But you seem to have a knack for being able to work with them. So why do you like working with creatives?
That's really one of my favorite groups of clients, and they're the most fun, actually. Yeah. and they love what they do, and I love what I do. And right there's an instant rapport. And as you kind of alluded to, a lot of them tell me they really need the help. This is not financial advising or planning. It's not really their forte, right? Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, I really enjoy coaching them and helping them improve in this area of their life. I want to, rather than asking them to just give me their money to invest, I want to help them and empower them to improve on this area of their life, because it's so integral and so much so connected with the rest of their lives, mm-hmm. Their business and their personal lives, and their family lives, and so that's really that's the connection that we have. Yeah, and most of them have become my friends.
Wait, do you mean that people who are not creatives hate their jobs?
I won't say they all do, but a lot of them. I'll just say that
it's a job.
I'll just say that it's painful to hear sometimes that people are doing their job just to make money, and they can't wait to retire or stop. You know? And with you guys, the creative people, the entrepreneurs who are in the creative industry, I don't hear that. They want to do it for as long as they can.
Right. It's funny, right? There's two types of people. One is like, I can't wait till retirement, and the other one's like, I never want to stop working.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm in that second category, and you guys are too, which is phenomenal.
Nice. Okay. So let's reach into the mailbag, shall we, and grab a question. So I'm going to leave the questions anonymous, because these are sort of private questions, and feel free, to do that. If you want to write in a question, you don't have to put your full name or anything like that. All right, so this one sounds pretty easy. What's the best investment out there these days? I think that's a $10 million question.
Yeah, well, this one's kind of easy to me. For business owners or aspiring business owners, who I presume is the entire, most of the audience here, I believe the best potential investment is your own business. I think it better be, right? That's where you've put the most energy into. That's where you're probably going to put the most dollars and time or energy into, right? And I say the best potential investment because it's obviously depends on your individual circumstances, of course. Mm-hmm. Some businesses might end up struggling, where other businesses flourish through various economic cycles.
Yeah. Said another way is a famous quote: "Bet on yourself."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another way to put it, right? Yeah. It's in your own business, you are your business, right? Yeah. And
you can you invest so much time into that, so it's probably going to be the thing that works out because you're just so passionate about it.
Yeah, I mean, and people spend the most time and energy and dollars into the things that they're most passionate about, right? Yeah. And you love what you do.
Okay, so what do you tell clients when they ask you for investment advice that is outside of their own business?
Well, that's going to be a long one, but I would say one of the things that's super important at a high level, from a treetop level, is that you don't want to put all your money or most of your money in one basket, right? No matter how much potential you think it has. Mm-hmm. So I think you want to split your existing assets and also your yearly ongoing savings into 3 buckets. Okay. And I think those 3 buckets should be high risk, medium risk, and low risk.
Okay, so you should hedge your bets on 3 different areas: high, medium, and low, versus just saying, I believe in this greatly, and I'm going to put it all down on this.
Right, because if you do that and put all your money in, or almost all your money in one basket, what if that doesn't work out the way that you had hoped to,
Yeah.
that you had hoped or expected, right?
Right.
What if there's some economic downturn that causes that to go down in a large way? Well, then you don't have other assets that you can pull from.
Yeah, and I've heard many horror stories. This particularly happens with houses and real estate, where I have $100,000. I'm going to spend $100,000 on a home, and it's like, well, I hope that home appreciates, but if it doesn't, or if it, God forbid, something catastrophic happens, you have nothing left in the bank.
Yeah, and it sounds like such a basic or simplistic principle or even common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people don't practice it or don't practice it well, you know? So it's very important. I can go into more details, which I
have a follow-up question. Can you list out some examples of what like high, medium, and low risk is? Like, is high risk like going to the casino and going to the high limit poker table, or low risk is mattress? Like, explain to us some examples of each of these from your standpoint.
That's a great question. To me, high risk, an example. Let me give you examples of each. Right.
Okay.
High risk investments, and by the way, high risk doesn't mean bad, right? It just means potentially higher gains or larger losses. So high risk could be, for example, stocks.
Okay,
right?
the stock market is a high risk. Okay.
Absolutely. Medium risk would be real estate, for example.
Okay.
And low risk would be savings, like savings in the bank, or, for example, savings inside your life insurance policy. Those are examples of savings. That's very low risk.
Okay. So putting money in the bank is low risk. But with the low risk at a bank, and if you guys have ever looked at a savings account recently from your local bank, you'll see that the interest is, dare I say, diddly squat, but it pretty much is. It's like pennies, right? So it's low risk. There's no risk involved, but it's low return.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, give me an example of a killer stock in the last couple of years. Like, can you just name one off the top of your head? Like, what's a great return on a stock?
Well, I appreciate you asking, but for legal and compliance reasons, I can't get into a specific stock.
Okay.
But you can imagine, for example, if any particular stock goes up 20%, right? The next year, what if it goes down 10, 20, or 35%? So that's an example of
a roller coaster, yeah.
Well, yeah, to me it means potential high risk or high reward,
right,
and potentially big downturns, right? So you have to be, again, doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that you have to sort of have diversification. You got to be prepared so that when certain things don't go your way, you have things that are medium and low risk, like you said, that are more stable.
Got it. Okay. Good. Yeah. Like you said, you gave a good example. Like, if you made 20% on this stock, sounds great. Much better than the savings account of, like, what is it, 0.5% if you're lucky, right? Like,
well, these days you can get interest rates at a little bit higher than that. But your general point is correct. Like, savings are going to be lower risk, but the returns are lower than some other potential investments. And there's a reason for that, for the stability. Yeah.
So that stock might look really great at 20%, but the next year it could be down 25 and you're now -5, so you got to really hedge those bets properly. But you say diversify it high, medium, and low.
Yep. Correct.
That's good advice. Okay. Let us get another one. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Which do you think is more important, annual savings or investment returns, and why? So I think let's explain both first. Annual savings versus what are the two?
So annual savings is how much of your income you can save and not spend.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, making up a simple example here, somebody makes $100,000 a year, and that person puts 20,000 of that into their savings account each year. So that would be an example of your annual savings.
Okay.
So in that example, that's 20%.
Okay.
Of your savings from your income. That's your annual savings.
Okay. And then how about investment returns?
Right. So to me, the definition of investment returns is how much you gain or lose on your investments. So, for example, you start with an investment of 100,000 in, say, the stock market, and in 1 year, that investment gains 5,000, or it loses $5,000.
Right. Okay. So now back to the question: which do you think is more important?
I think this is a really great question. I think both are important, but I actually think annual savings percentage is more important. And if you think about it, which do you have more control over, right? I think you have more control over your level of savings from your income, with habits such as discipline, structured and forced savings, and budgeting your living expenses, right? So by increasing your level of savings, and controlling some of these other things that you can control, like your budgeting, your living expenses, by increasing your level of savings, you can take less risk with your investments.
Right. Okay. I have a follow-up question, kind of to that, but also to the one previously. I mean, why is it so important to you that we have diversification in our savings and ongoing yearly savings from the income? Why do you think it's important to diversify that?
I think it's so important to do that because you wanna carve out a certain percentage of money in each bucket, right? So, going back to that example, if we have a recession, or if we have difficult years in your business, right? For example, if you have a certain percentage and enough of a low risk bucket, say in your savings, you still have this bucket to draw from,
right?
Even if everything else is down, right? So to live your life, to pay your mortgage for your family.
Yeah.
So it's so important to have that low risk. When it comes to medium risk, I think everyone likes to have. To me, real estate is a form of medium risk, and everyone likes to have some form of real estate that they own. So they have a nice home or apartment to live in. Yeah, and I believe medium risk, real estate is a medium type of risk for reasons I can get into. But it's, obviously medium risk to me means not super high or super low fluctuations.
Yeah, you hear wins, but you also hear losses.
And real estate is a type of medium risk, I think, because it's not going to probably go up by 50% a year or go down by 50% a year, although it can. But in our experience, right, in good stable regions or geographic locations, I think real estate is the type of medium risk, and high risk is interesting. It's, again, high risk doesn't mean it's bad, but it's like your growth bucket or dream bucket, right? Again, more risk means more potential gains or losses. So you don't want to have all your money in this bucket for obvious reasons we talked about, but you may want to have some, right? Especially if it's going to you're willing to have a longer time horizon. Being your growth bucket or dream bucket, you have that time horizon and you can tolerate more volatility because the time will allow it hopefully to recover if there are losses.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's grab another one. Got another one for you, and this one involves a topic that many people despise, causes much headache for a lot of people, especially self-starting entrepreneurs who might not have a firm grasp on this topic. But this question involves taxes. And there's that famous quote, what are the only two things that you're guaranteed in life? Death and taxes. So this question is, why is it important to have a tax strategy, or is it important to have a tax strategy for the long term versus just planning for taxes this year?
I think that's super important, Jeff. I think we often hear people talk about investment rate of return, right? But to me, what's even more important is your after-tax rate of return, because that determines what goes into your pocket, right, after you pay taxes. It's great for you to get a great return on your investment, like using that example we did before. But if you have to pay a lot of money in taxes, you end up with actually less that you can actually hold on to, right, that you actually keep. So I think for that reason, it's super important. And I think to your point about, or to the point of the person asking this, whoever this question is from, taxes could be owed this year or many years in the future, right? So some people may not even realize that on their investments or certain types of accounts that they're going to owe taxes on much of their investments many years from now, right? So I think it's very important, and we need to have strategies and investments which protect us from taxes both now and in the distant future.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is taxes to creep up on you and smack you in the face in the middle of the night. Which for me, myself, and a lot of my friends who are creatives, it's happened. They think they made a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, Uncle Sam starts calling, and then it becomes a very scary situation. So great. Thank you, Lang, for coming on. If people want to reach out to you, are you okay if I give out your information?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if you have a question about financial advising, anything of that nature, Lang is here to help you out. His name is Liang.lee. His phone number is 808-695-2119. You can reach him via email, liang.lee at westpacwealth.com, and I'll spell that out for you, liang.lee at westpacwealth.com. That is liang.lee at westpacwealth.com. Again, Lang, thank you so much for coming in and gracing us idiots with your knowledge. I hope to have you back on soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me here.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye. Registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. Securities, products, and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. California Insurance License Number 0H50389. AR Insurance License C Number 162202373. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. For more information, please visit www.westpacwealth.com.